Hey, hey, everybody. No, I'm just playing. I don't pop pills. I'm Zach, Primetime Reeb, your neighborhood friendly promoter, coach, trainer, 43-year-old professional wrestler. And I'm joined alongside my podcast partner, the 7-foot wrecking ball, Paul Isadora. And welcome back to the program. The guy who is he claims that I am his coach, he claims that I am his trainer, and he claims I'm a 43-year-old professional wrestler. Ladies and gentlemen, this man has done it all, and he continues to work his ass to the bone. If you want to know about what it takes to get opportunities in any line of professional wrestling or just out there in the entertainment world, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, AJ Kirsch.
Damn, man. Thanks for that intro. I appreciate it. And yeah, I've always claimed that you are my trainer. Day one, never forget where you came from, and I never did. So shout out to Primetime for being my OG trainer.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I before we get going, man, I wanted to thank you, man, because
damn it. We're ditching the light. The light died on me twice. I'm not gonna have it die on me again.
Well, I see it so many times in any type of industry, work, profession, where, man, you have just been nothing but a solid professional with me. You except for the first day with I got all the money and you didn't have it. You you have never lied to me. You've never sugarcoated anything. I remember when you were leaving the company, you said, "Hey, man, this is going to be my last show, and I would like in PCW, where my career started, to go out the same way. We had the match together, and you told me I'm going on to do this, and I appreciate everything. And since that day you left, it's been amazing to watch you, man. But I just wanted to thank you for just not only being such a professional and such a good person, but you just said it, man. Never forgetting where you came from, man. And I think you are the epitome, man, of that in professional wrestling. And for that, I just want to thank you. And I know Paul had a topic he wanted to talk about today. So, as Cody Rhodes say, what do you want to talk about? And guys, I'll add my 2 cents. I'll add my 2 cents from the peanut gallery in, but let's rock and roll.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like I did have a topic, but now that I'll kind of piggyback off of what you were just saying. And AJ, I think I've told you this a handful of times already, but just so amazing watching the grind that you continually put yourself through. Whether it's going to a wrestling show, getting a couple hours of sleep, going to some sort of audition, hitting the gym, doing all the things, right, that you need to do to do what you want to do, go where you want to go, and get all these great opportunities that through all your hard work, you have been able to wrangle all these different opportunities. And then, throw Burning Man on top of that, right? Where you're just completely off the grid, man, for the entire time, and then I'm just like, how does this guy take this huge chunk of time off and then pick up where you left off, man? So talk a little bit about just how you keep yourself motivated to continually strive to get new opportunities, continue to have the same old ones year after year. And how do you go about doing that? Because I know, like, Zach and I just a couple podcasts ago, we're calling people out, right? Everybody needs to get back in shape, right? Because there was a great version of everyone else years ago that most of us, yourself unincluded, I think, because I think you're probably a better version today than you were back in the day, just because of the grind that we're talking about. But we made this kind of like this challenge, like we're going to hold everybody accountable, and we're going to go about doing that. But how do you keep yourself motivated to stay in the best shape, go pursue these opportunities that you want to get, and how do you fit all this into your schedule?
Man, that's well, again, thank you both for the kind words. It means a lot coming from the both of you. And I know we only have an hour or so, so I'm going to try to keep an answer to that very open-ended question somewhat brief. All of my success that I have today and all of these wild opportunities and cool moments, I attribute to pro wrestling. All of them, bar none. Like, none of it could have happened unless I had been silly, stupid, ambitious, crazy enough to pursue this dream. And like, if I had not kind of believed in myself the way I did, there's no way I could have done any of it. And like, through pro wrestling, there's so many skills you can acquire through pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is pretty much everything. Excuse me, everything. If you want to be a wrestler, you need to be an athlete. You need to learn to work out. You need to learn to eat right. You need to actually also eat right. You need to actually do the things, and they're not easy. It sucks to choose a salad instead of fries, or a salad instead of a burger, or say no to chocolate, or whatever the case is. But like, every single decision you make has an effect on you and your trajectory and your health and your well-being and your relationships, like all of it. And I'm not without my times in my life where but prioritizing wrestling was like way out of balance and sabotaging other aspects of my life. I think I have a very healthy relationship with wrestling now. It's still something that I love being involved with and I love doing from a host, ring announcer, and commentator perspective, which getting good in that allowed me to become a good host with pretty much every type of live event under the sun. Like, I host everything from tech conferences to combat sports. I just did the Super Bowl for the 3rd consecutive year. I did roller derby events, karaoke party nights. What else? I just came on as the new host for the Savannah Bananas, the kind of weird and wacky baseball team. They have me flying around all over the country. In fact, depending on when this airs, on Saturday, March 15th, I'll be hosting in front of 65,000 people at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play. That's a WrestleMania-sized crowd. And so it's not WrestleMania, and part of me still wants to host and ring announce at WrestleMania, but I learned what I was good at in wrestling, and it allowed me to be good in so many other avenues of entertainment that I find equally fulfilling. And so it's not like I'm doing these things because I'm like, I didn't make it to, I didn't sign with WWE as a wrestler. I'm not a WWE ring announcer, so woe is me. Like, I'm going to find something to take its place. Turns out I actually enjoy hosting just about every type of live event imaginable. But again, I would not have found that had it not been for first pursuing wrestling, then finding hosting, and then learning what skills from wrestling and hosting can translate to other areas. So I think, again, it was a very open-ended question. I'm going to bring it to a close here because we have something to talk about. I don't know what it is. Maybe we'll just call it in the ring. But I think my willingness to be open to how discovering what my value is in wrestling can translate to other projects and endeavors and pursuits, and which, if you keep that open mind, you get better at those things, and then you also get to bring those skills back to wrestling. So they feed each other. And I've been, but I think ultimately it just came down to a decision. You know what? I want to pursue my dream of being a pro wrestler.
Absolutely.
AJ, real quick, couple things you said, what we were talking about beforehand. There's something else we were talking about. We were talking about a couple things beforehand that I want to carry them along here as we go. But
Great.
One thing I wanted to talk about is, so we're pursuing this, right? So we all have to have these egos, right? We have to have an ego. Speaking of ego, when I first took you down to APW, you teamed with Nate Rules and Johnny LaRocca was your manager, and you guys were called Ego. Great tag team, by the way. But we all have these egos, right? And I've seen the egos get in check with many guys for many years. When you're doing all this stuff, when you're hosting Hood Slam, when you're chasing the dream of being a professional a wrestler, Super Bowls, all this stuff, how do you, and tell these young guys this too, because I see so many guys just ruin their careers and we don't want to work with them because of those massive egos. How do you keep that ego in check? How do you keep maintenance on that ego to humble yourself enough so that ego doesn't take over? Like, oh, look at me. I'm on Tough Enough, or look at me, I'm hosting the Super Bowl for the 3rd year in a row. How do you, AJ Kirsch, and the advice you would give these young guys coming up in the wrestling business and the entertainment business, how do you keep that ego? How do you keep it so humble and in check so it just doesn't take off on you?
That is a great question. I think coming up in pro wrestling, you are taught that you are always a student of the game. There's always more to learn. And I think when young guys, young performers, when they think they have it all figured out, they think they don't have anything else to learn, and they think that they are owed something, or they think that because of where they're at, they should be booked more or in a higher spot on the card, or whatever it is that they think. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes me anything. Everything that all the opportunities that I've had, it's because I'm good at what I do. And to your point, though, like I don't think anybody gets into pro wrestling or show business at all if you don't have something in you that's like, watch this, watch me do this. Which you have to have I have a healthy relationship with wrestling nowadays. I think I have a healthy relationship with my ego, because I've been told by enough people who I trust and whose opinions I respect, and I've received enough feedback from fans and coworkers and colleagues that I believe that I'm good at what I do. And I don't pretend to not be good at what I do. Bruce Lee has a quote that goes something like, if I tell you I'm good, you might think I'm boastful. But if I tell you I'm no good, you know I'm lying. So like, I know I'm good at what I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the career trajectory that I've had. But I'm constantly coming from a place of not looking back and being like, look at all the cool stuff I've done. Although sometimes that does help when I'm like feeling down or depressed or, discouraged or something. But that's for me. That's not for me to put out to anybody else. That's for me to feel better about myself. But I'm always coming from a place of, how can I get better? How can I continue to grow professionally and personally? And if you come from a place of curiosity and remind yourself that you enjoy what you do, that you have to do it with other people, that you get to do it with other people, and that these other people can oftentimes provide insight or perspective or experience that you otherwise probably wouldn't have been exposed to. So if you think of it more as a collaborative effort, less of like, what's best for me, approach it like, what's best for the show, or what position can I put myself in so that I can grow or learn something new, or like if you're the type of wrestler that you're worried about winning all the time, you're in the wrong business. If you can make somebody else look good, everybody's going to want to work with you. And if you can continue to get better as you make other people look good, more people want to work with you. People will probably pay you more to work with them. You're going to start getting out of what is a very common trap of just working within 100 miles or so. So yeah, to summarize, like if you come from a place of curiosity, joy, and always wanting to get better, then I don't know, the ego just kind of takes a back seat. But again, you got to have a healthy relationship with it. If somebody that you trust says, "Hey man, you need to clean this up, or you need to work on this hold, or you need to work on selling," it's easy to get defensive and be like, "Oh, they don't know what they're talking about." That's just you trying to protect your feelings. You need thick skin if you're going to be in pro wrestling or any line of entertainment.
Absolutely. I know, like, so what I kind of wanted to talk about to begin with was kind of your social media presence and how you've established that and how you use that as a tool. I think a lot of times that's something that you can, without being egotistical, you can say, hey, this is what I bring to the table. I have this huge social media presence that if you have me involved in your whatever you're doing, your product, I'm going to be able to bring eyes onto that product. So talk about how you've developed your social media presence, how you've grown that, what type of things go into that stuff. Because the one thing that me and Zach have talked about is how so many people have sabotaged their own career by the way that they use social media in a negative way. So talk about how you use that as a tool to kind of elevate what you're doing and create opportunities like that. And then I do remember one time, it was actually a couple times in a row, that you had something that you were sitting in front of the gym in your car going, I don't want to fucking do this. I don't want to go inside that gym right now. And then the follow up always is, man, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I went to the gym. I feel so much better today. And talk about that kind of like that type of mindset, right? You're not perfect, right?
God, no. No, I mean, and even like to circle back, I want to talk about the gym thing in a moment, but like, I think there have been moments where I may have sabotaged my career on social media because there was a time when I was like really unhappy with my place in wrestling and kind of shared that publicly. Um, WWE is not aligned with a lot of my, I don't know, politics is too broad, I guess, but it's like, there are a lot of things that I disagree with about how WWE is run as a company, and I've shared a lot of those publicly. And WWE is still a place where I want to work, so it may not have been a great idea to be like putting them on blast for aligning themselves with somebody who I don't support or agree with. And I think it's we were also around when social media came on. We remember a time before social media was even a thing. And I think anytime a tool that catches on that quickly, it's kind of the Wild West to begin with. It's kind of like, how do we treat this as a place where we share everything, or do we treat this as a tool? And so, again, I talk about relationships a lot, like with wrestling, with my ego. My relationship with social media has changed a lot through the years because I used to think it was the type of thing that I should be as honest and authentic as possible. And if that's what you want out of your social media, then do that. But realize that if you're picking sides and if you're sharing polarizing opinions, you never know who's watching. And so I'm not saying that you should like sugarcoat or change how you express yourself on social media if that's what you want to use social media for. But ultimately, social media is a tool, and you can use a hammer to smash your thumb into nothing, or you can use a hammer to build a house. And so I've had to kind of like change my thinking about social media, where I'm now using social media more as a tool to elevate my career, which in turn has allowed me to spend a lot less time on social media, which most of it is an absolute cesspool. Like anytime I log on to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, not as much, but like Facebook, or as soon as I log on and just browse, I'm like immediately reminded of why I now spend so little time comparatively to how much time I used to spend on social media. And I would see, I would see rumors flying around from WWE and like, can you believe what such and such said? And then about something in real life. And then I would like join the pile on. And I'm like, it took that happening a couple times for me to be like, what am I doing? Like, what am I accomplishing by just kind of like either piling on or, I just joining the whatever rah, like whatever, whoever messed, like it didn't feel good. And I think it was coming from a place of me not being at a place in wrestling where I wanted to be. So it just took some honesty with myself about like how I'm spending my time on social media and why and what I'm saying and like, what good is this doing? What good is it doing? I saw some squabbling on Twitter just yesterday, I think, about like who was like the longest running promotion in NorCal or who deserves to be considered. I'm like, who cares? This is how you're spending your time. Of all the things you could be doing right now, you're gonna shit tweet somebody about who's the lifeblood of NorCal. Who cares? Who cares? It's such a like, and I mean, and again, that's why I'm just like, this is why I'm not spending nearly as much time on social media. And interestingly enough, spending way less time on social media, coincidence or not, I'm getting a lot more done and I'm getting way better opportunities.
You know, that's you don't want to know my opinion, but I'm going to give it to you about social
Please, yes, I do
media.
want to know your opinion.
Well, the thing is this, you will never know unless you know me or you were with me. You will never know where the fuck I ate breakfast at. And I'll tell you why you won't know where the fuck I ate breakfast at. Because it ain't none of your goddamn business. The thing is this, if you go to my social media, I'm going to tell you what's going on with the podcast. I'm going to tell you what's going on with the next training class. I'm going to post videos about the show, where you get tickets. Zach Reeb's social media is all about Zach Reeb's business. Zach Reeb's personal life. I even, that first time when I went 652 days of sobriety, I was posting every day, hashtag sober Zach. And all these people that didn't really give a shit about me were like, oh, good job, buddy. We're so proud of you. But they could give a shit less. Now I keep that to myself. My recovery, my sponsor, my program, I'm sponsoring people now, man.
Wow.
And it's an honor. It was an honor to have a young 25-year-old military kid say that I spoke to him in the meetings. You know what I mean? And one thing through social media that I just can't stand is, hey, man, nobody gives a shit if you think you're great. You were talking about it earlier. It's like, oh, I saw someone post the other day, I think I'm getting pretty good at this stuff, or I think I'm good, or I had an amazing match. Did you have an amazing match? Did you really have an amazing match that you went on there on social media and your opponent commented on it and some fans came on there and fans were like, yeah, that match was fantastic. It was a banger. You know what a banger is? I'm going to tell you what a banger is. A banger is, even to this generation, you could pop in some Dr. Dre 2001 and they could love mumble rap, and they're going to be like, man, every track on this album is going to withstand the test of time. And when you go back, and I dare people to go back and do it, I dare people to go back and watch some of those AJ Kirsch versus Zach Primetime Reed matches, because the psychology and the storytelling and the athleticism and what we did in those matches, they could still hold up to the test of time here 15 years later. And I just, for the life of me, you said something that was just, man, the greatest analogy I heard about social media or anything. You said, you can take a hammer and you can blow your goddamn thumb to smithereens and blood everywhere. Or you could take that same hammer and build $1 million home. You know what I mean? So what are you going to do with that social media? I mean, personally, I've seen people make posts that say, I just won $10,000 on a slot machine, and they're telling you what casino you're at. Hey, man, maybe I'll get a ski mask on and go rob your ass when you hit the parking lot. You know what I mean? And you have used social media in such an amazing way. And sometimes I say, how many subscribers do you have on your pages?
Well, so YouTube, I don't really do much with YouTube anymore. I think I have like 2,500 on YouTube. Instagram, I've been working on growing lately with kind of the events that I've been working as of late. So that's just eclipsed 8,000, which is nice. And like when you're hearing these numbers, these aren't influencer numbers. I'm not an influencer by any means. I think my Facebook public page is 8,000. Twitter's maybe 13. But I don't know who's really paying attention. And that's the thing. You never know who's paying attention. Dude in a ski mask would be, plotting to rob you because you just won 10 grand at Cash Creek or whatever. But also what you post online, unless you delete it later, and even then it's like that could be up there forever. Like, yeah, that stuff will find you at some point. And if it doesn't paint you in the type of light that a potential whatever whether it's an employer or whatever the case is, could come back to bite you in the butt. And so again, that's like something that I've had to learn over the years. You don't need to share everything. Everybody doesn't need to know everything. In fact, it's to your benefit to be careful about what you share on social media. And that, again, it's like when it was first coming up and it was super popular, and like that was something that I wish I had I wish I understood that better. But it took a couple moments of being like, like when what's a good example? When Logan Paul posted that video in the Japanese garden or something where people had hung themselves, like I forget what I said to him. I tweeted at Logan Paul and he blocked me. Now he's one of the biggest draws in WWE. How does that make me look if one of their biggest and most lucrative talents blocked me on social media because I said something mean or whatever the case was? Like it's not a good look. And if that's still a place where I'd like to work, and it is at some point, it's like if it doesn't happen, like I think I'll be okay with that, but I'd still kind of like it to happen. You got to think about that stuff.
I'll tell you
Absolutely.
right now. I'll tell you right now, and Paul, I'll let you get going. I don't know why this thing is. Oh, there it is. I had a couple women tell me to go to Snapchat, and then they said everything erases in 30 seconds. And I just screenshotted it. And I said, well, it didn't erase too fast because I just screenshotted it. And they said, yeah, but I can tell you screenshotted it. It tells me that you screenshotted that photo I sent you. And I said, do you think I give a shit that it told you that I screenshotted that photo?
And you delete
it's
it
still
for
not
me?
safe. I got it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on that point about you never know who's watching. Like, I talk to high school athletes trying to go to college, and that's the biggest thing that you want to kind of make them aware of is like just be careful on social media of what you're doing because coaches are looking at that. A lot of times, coaches are looking at that first. And you mentioned employers, right? Somewhere that you want to work. It's so simple where you get somebody's name that, hey, you're going to interview with this person or this person is coming in for an interview. And the first thing I think people do is I'm going to go take a look and see where can I find this guy, right? All different types of social media, whether it's, LinkedIn or, Twitter or Instagram or whatever.
They're going to Google you. They're going to Google you.
You're going to go try to find some information on this person. So, do yourself a favor and don't do stupid shit on social media because it is absolutely going to come back to bite you in the ass. So definitely
something you might want to do too. If you're particularly mad about something and you want to tweet somebody about it, type it out and don't hit send. Just type it out, then delete it or put it in the drafts folder. Sometimes just typing it out and just getting it out, getting the words out of you might like scratch the itch enough that you don't have to publicly, smear somebody.
Of course. And I don't know how many times I've said to someone, are you just telling me because you needed to vent or did you need to do something about it? Right. Because a lot of times that's exactly what it is. Hey, I just needed to get that out. I just needed to tell somebody.
Right.
I don't need you to do anything about it. I feel better now, whatever. So that's perfect, man. Typing something out and then deleting it.
And then delete it. You do not need to vent to the entire world because somebody's going to find a reason to be mad about it. And you don't know who that somebody is.
Well, I'm not an antagonist. I'm the least antagonist, and I'm not a manipulator. I am the greatest instigator you will ever meet in your entire life. I will sit at a bar, and if somebody is talking to me going, man, screw that dude over there. I'll beat his ass, man. That dude's no good. I'll be like, that guy over there? And they'll be like, yeah. I will walk up to that guy, and they'll be like, what are you doing, man? I'll be like, hey, bro, see that dude down there? That dude said you're a punk, man. You ain't no good. You're a piece of shit. He's going to whoop your ass. I will step back and watch this fight unfold and get nothing on me. And then when the fight is over, I would sit down and drink with these guys and be like, hey, man, that's a good fight, man. And it's like, hey, weren't you the one who did this? And I'm like, yeah, but you guys had to handle this. So I will stir that pot all day long. I have a tendency, and I know you know this, I have a tendency, because I'm a very nice guy and I'm also very calm when I talk to people, and I'm pretty energetic too, but I have a tendency to say things in short spurts that really piss people off. I can get under people's skin verbally. That's one of my gift. I call it a gift, because I can take something somebody else could say to somebody and they'd be totally fine with it. They'd be like, oh, that guy's an asshole anyways. I don't care. I could say the same thing and they would get really emotional or pissed off about it, because they're like, man, Zach's such a nice guy. And he just told me this. And it hits those people a lot harder. That social media, man, these cell phones, they're the greatest thing to ever happen, but they are also the worst thing to ever happen. And to be number one on both those categories is completely mind-blowing to me, AJ. Completely mind-blowing. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a tool that what you just described, that ability to get under people's skin, that is also a tool. You can use that to set up a fight and take a few steps back and watch the chaos unfold. But I'd be shocked if that tool also didn't get you into some hot water from time to time.
Absolutely.
So it's like, you just look at it like a tool. If you look at it like a tool and as a means to an end, it's a little bit easier to not just dump so much unnecessary time and, potential pitfalls into something where you're just treating it like a tool. You take it out when you need it and you put it away when you're done. Like nowadays, most of my social media is just me talking about the events that I have coming up next, sharing highlights from events I've already done. Occasionally a personal post if it's like my mom's birthday or me and my girlfriend are doing something, or like stuff like that. Like, I feel like there's so much negativity going on right now, especially now, that to just continue putting that out there, it doesn't feel good for me, and I imagine it doesn't feel good for other people. So like, what purpose does it serve?
It serves that purpose that these people just can't keep their opinions to themselves, and they feel that their opinion, hey, everyone's got an opinion, but I'm over here saying factual shit. So
Right.
you can have your opinion.
They need to feel engaged. They're bored. They need to be occupied with something. They need to quarrel over the longest reigning promotion in NorCal or whatever it is. Like, ultimately, what is to be gained? Like, I don't know. But again, it took me a long time to kind of think more critically about it like that.
Well, the thing when I talk about opinions is I get so many people going, Eminem sucks, man. Lil Gotti, Lil Uzi, Lil Clipper, Lil Grenade, man. That guy is way better than Eminem. And it's like, no, man. Eminem's 3-4 decades. He's sold more albums. They're like, well, this guy's got more followers. Eminem, that guy would never have as much traction or as many followers as sales as Eminem did before the internet hit. Here's a big one for you that we can all talk about. How ahead of his time, because we were there for this. You talked about this just now about social media and the internet starting to boom. How ahead of his time was the man who wore Crocs years before they were cool? How ahead of his time was Roland Alexander, not just on Crocs, but with the internet and social media, man? I remember sitting in on meetings with Dedrich and Gabe Ramirez, and it's like, they're like, hey, Primetime, you want to sit around after a Gym Wars or this for a meeting? And I was like, what kind of meeting? They're like, the internet. And I was like, the internet? And I would sit in there, and Roland had an entire, I don't know if you remember, AJ, but he had an entire group of people, production people, and it was all about how we're going to use the internet, social media, the World Wide Web to expand this wrestling product. He knew that the money on this thing, wasn't just in doing the shows and the ticket sales. He knew well in advance before this thing hit that the money was going to be on social media. That was always nuts to me, that this 60-year-old man knew this immediately when it came out. You're like,
yeah, he connected the dots. I mean, I think APW, I'd be shocked if anybody else had an internet champion before APW did. I think Click Wrestle was the name of the service, where it was just starting to like bank just hours and hours and hours of wrestling. And I mean, yeah, I Roland
Women's wrestling.
saw it coming. He saw it coming.
What was it? What was the women's thing they did the night before
like
we
chick fights or chick wrestle or
chick
something.
fight? They knew that women's wrestling. They knew about the views in women's wrestling on the internet before any of us knew anything about it. We were like, why is Dedrich flying in all these women for this show that's only drawing 150 people at Kickstart Stadium? He's wasting his money. He wasn't. He's still making money off of that stuff.
Right. He wasn't thinking about the live show. Yeah.
No. That's crazy to think about that. Okay. All right, here we go. I want to know personally, because I love hearing your views on this. John Cena goes heel. Did you see it coming? Were you surprised?
Yes.
Did you enjoy 4 matches in 4 hours of the Elimination Chamber in Toronto?
Let me answer those in order. I loved it. I did not see it coming. In fact, I was hosting a fundraiser that same night, and I was hosting with somebody who is also involved in the NorCal wrestling scene. He works under the name Jackie Orange. He's a host and commentator. And he saw some tweet that said, John Cena attacks Cody Rhodes, goes heel. And both of us were like, no way. Like, they're making this up. That didn't happen. This is some fan just kind of sensationalizing something. They want him to go heel. He didn't really go heel. And then we leave the event and look at the clips on Twitter, and we're like, what? And like, it was so good. I do want to talk about, though, how you brought up 4 matches in 4 hours, because it leads me to believe that you wish there was more wrestling happening on that pay-per-view. For me, it's story over everything. No? Okay, then my mistake. But for me, it's story over everything. Say what you were
saying, because you're going to say, I want to hear what you have to say right here, because I agree with you already.
Story over everything. I think WWE has never been in a better place as far as telling stories. From the little stuff with John Cena telling CM Punk, I missed you, and then CM Punk saying, I miss you too, and then they hug before they start beating the crap out of each other. Mwah! Amazing stuff. And then Cena, his face, like, I'd never seen that look on his face before in my life. Even when he was a heel back in 2003, never seen that level of like darkness on his face. And it went right from that big goofy grin and, shaking hands with Cody Rhodes. It was cinema. Like we were saying before we went on the air, when pro wrestling hits, there's nothing better. Everybody has wanted to see John Cena go heel ever since he became a babyface, and we're getting it. Now we have the whole story. Is he gonna like eclipse Ric Flair as a 16-time champion and become a 17-time champion? I wouldn't be surprised if we see a heel John Cena absolutely bludgeon Ric Flair to get even more heat on him going into WrestleMania. Like, I'm more confident that's going to happen than not happen. And just imagining the white hot heat on Cena, if and when he does that, is like can't miss TV. So
he could run this for another 2-3 years, man. He doesn't.
Well, that's the thing. He may not even retire. He might win the championship at WrestleMania. Luke Skywalker's gone to the dark side, and now we get like another year or 2. Like, who knows? You can't
Roman Reigns run.
Right. And now we've got the possibility of a face Roman Reigns against a heel John Cena, who 5 years ago would have ever thought that could have been in the cards. Like,
100%.
It's so good right now. It's just so good.
That's the passion. Okay. What really gets me that I think a lot of people are missing in this whole scenario is that 2 of the biggest, honestly, baby faces of all time have elected to go heel to make Cody Rhodes that much bigger of a fucking baby face. The Rock and John Cena are both like, hey, this is the future of this company. This is the next me.
Well, that wasn't the plan. the plan was Rock and Roman last year, and the fans said, no, Cody needs to finish his story. And for all the amounts of the times that I've rolled my eyes where WWE's like, it's about listening to the audience. It's about listening to the audience. I think they listen to the audience. I think they do a better job of it now than under the prior regime. But it was supposed to be Rock and Roman, with Rock being the superhero babyface. And he is that's how Rock became popular, was as a heel. He had these, that's when he had the catchphrases and the eyebrow and the people's elbow. And he was just so damn good at it and so damn charismatic that the fans started supporting him. And so for him to like bring back this Hollywood Rock character, the final boss, which just the name itself is just amazing. Like, anyway, I'm going to go on and on if I don't stop myself. But it's like the fans said, we love Cody. We want Cody to finish the story. When he did, I was like, I love seeing Cody chase the title. Is he going to be as interesting as champion? I think he has been up to this point, but I think now that we've kind of done this full circle moment back to what feels like WrestleMania last year, where you've got The Rock, which I get, the story seems like he's the Darth Vader and he has turned Luke to the dark side. And now we have this, we have Cody, who's doing such a good job as champion. Like, I don't know. How's it going to play out? And the WrestleMania last year, you couldn't even call it because you had Taker and the Usos and everything else.
That's the best part, right? That we don't know. That's what we want. We don't want to know. I don't want to know. We're talking about social media. I don't want to know that shit. I don't want to know what's going on. But you said it. It was supposed to be Rock and Roman, but because of the audience, we've seen it with Kofi Mania. We saw it with Daniel Bryan. They have chosen this guy. They said this is a baby. I wish they would have had a couple heels, a couple bad guys, or we were talking about the other day, rule breakers. And that's the thing that's what we used to call the heels, is rule breakers. And the rules used to be implemented in wrestling and the fans knew the rules. So it was so easy for the guys to get heat. It was so easy for the heels to get heat because we knew the rules and they bent the rules. And nowadays you literally have to do something like these guys did at Elimination Chamber to get some serious heat. You almost have to murder somebody or beat up a real fan to get some legitimate heat, where back in the day you could be like, oh, abdominal stretch. Oh, I pulled my hand off the rope. Hey, wait a minute. Is that rope bouncing? Did I see your hand come off that rope? And it's like, man, we've made it so hard. Wrestling's made it so hard on ourselves to even generate a little bit of heat, man, because we have no alliance to the rules. I'm climbing up the top rope and the ref's going, get down from there. 1, 2, 3. And the wrestler goes, frog splash. And the ref goes, oh, fuck it. I'll run in and make the count anyways. Why would you make the count on that? You just told me you just were counting me out for climbing the top rope and telling me to get down there. Kirsch with the big elbow drop. Fuck it. 1, 2, 3. Here's your winner. Now, I'll stop on that because you'll get going on that, Rock. But one question for both of you to answer real quick. Have you ever, because I haven't, have you ever seen the WWE cooking on all cylinders like they are going into a WrestleMania like this? They could do 3 nights, I think.
Yeah, well, Paul, I want you to chime in because Zach and I feel like could go back and forth forever about.
Of course. Yeah, well, and I want you to get to that because I know we had a podcast about that specifically that we just kind of probably need to talk more about. But I think probably the last time that I can, just right off the top of my head is Hogan Andre in WrestleMania 3, right? That's when I thought the buildup and the anticipation for what is going to happen was at a level like this, right? You just couldn't wait to see, like, man, I can't wait till they get in the ring and what's going to happen. And obviously in that match, Hogan goes for the body slam and Andre falls on top of him. And I just remember my heart sinking, going, oh shit, it's over just like that. Right. And then obviously kicks out. But I just remember being so excited about that. I couldn't wait to see it. Like I was like, oh, well, we got to buy this. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know, so it's like exciting times. But yeah, I think that's probably the last time that I've remembered it being like this. Like you can't wait to see what happens next.
I got a question for you both too. This is good. I think sometimes we do need to talk about this stuff, and I'm glad we are. Because I believe, and this is great debate, do you think if Hogan and Piper could have done business together and they weren't so worried about who was beating who, do you think that Piper and Hogan could have sold out 93,000 in the Pontiac Silverdome? Because I believe they could have. If they would have played that out and those guys could have done business, I think Piper and Hogan could have, especially if Piper would have won that belt as the heel, the bad guy, and Hogan would have been chasing him. I believe Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan could have sold 93,000 as well.
Right, and I think in my mind, I thought Piper was always the biggest foil for Hogan. You know, like from 9-inch LJN figures, those were the guys that I always had fighting each other. So for sure, in my mind, what do you think, AJ?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And here's why: Hogan is so used to being the bigger guy. He was in his prime. He was 6'8". 300 plus pounds, like, and I don't know if that was it. This was probably his worked weight. He was probably like 280. Even then, he was always the bigger guy. It was so rare for Hogan to be physically threatened. Like Piper, I agree, is Hogan's greatest foil. Piper was brilliant. He was cunning. He's on my Mount Rushmore as far as pro wrestling promos. Like I believed every single word Piper ever said, in or out of the ring. I believed him. But when Hogan's looking up at Andre like this, even the most passionate Hulkamaniac was probably like, I don't know. And even Paul, as you said, your heart's sinking when Hogan went for the slam and Andre fell on top of him. Like, if it weren't for that physical mismatch, I don't think Hogan and Piper would have sold out WrestleMania 3 the way Hogan and Andre did, because you also had Bobby Heenan talking for Andre, and Heenan and Heyman are like 1A and 1B. I think Heyman's 1A if I'm picking, and Heenan's 1B. But I think between Hogan never had a challenge like Andre, like again physically, and I think Andre being the attraction that he was, Hogan, you know, just being Hogan and the peak of Hulkamania, I think it really was the irresistible force against the immovable object. I don't think Piper could have. I don't think you could have said the same thing if Hogan and Piper were facing off. The irresistible force against the immovable object. I think it had to be Andre.
Great point. That's why I'm asking. I got more because I wanted to ask these questions to some people.
Let's do it.
So you said that about Hogan. We missed Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 in Indianapolis. And I believe we missed that because of exactly what you just said. Ric Flair was not as an imposing enough figure for Hogan to wrestle, but Sid Vicious was. And Vince loved the fact of the big guys. When you look back at it now, though, one thing I like to think of why this matchup didn't happen is that Hogan, and it's not a bad thing, had his moves. He had his five moves of doom. You know what I mean? And Hogan could wrestle 10 minutes. Ric Flair wrestled 1 hour. He wrestled 1 hour matches. You know, a Ricky Steamboat, a storyline with Miss Elizabeth, and a 25, 30-minute athletic competition with the Macho Man Randy Savage was going to be more appealing, and Hulk Hogan going after with a return to the Ultimate Warrior too. So do you feel that what I just said about the time restraints of the 1 hour and the 10-minute matches these guys had, and Hogan needing those imposing bigger figures, why we didn't get Hogan and Flair at WrestleMania 8?
I heard that Hogan and Flair actually faced off on non-televised matches on a number of occasions, and for whatever reason, and I don't know what those reasons were, but the conclusion was drawn that there was not enough chemistry between them to deliver a WrestleMania caliber match. And I think conditioning had something to do with that. Ric Flair has wrestled hours, multiple times a week, I'm sure. Hogan is just an athlete that is built completely differently. we saw them work together later in WCW in matches that were fine. They were what they were. Also, like, Hogan, and I think this does have something to do with it, WWF at the time was a far larger organization with a far greater reach than the National Wrestling Alliance. Or if Ric Flair was still there when it became WCW, not exactly. I think it was like 92 or 93 when that happened. And I think this was prior to that, or maybe right around that time. Either way, he came in with the real World's Championship, right? Like, they tried to get that over from the Royal Rumble. I don't know what the answer is, actually, but Paul, I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just, and we've talked about this with a couple of other people, just about who can do an hour-long match and who couldn't. So I think that's got to be a big factor into it, that, the conditioning there. Hogan's, used to going 10 minutes at the most, but Flair could go forever. That has to have something to do with it. And
I'm
obviously,
sure egos did too. Going back to what we talked about earlier, egos had to have something to do with it.
And then what Zach said also, just Vince liking the bigger guys, I think that has to play a role in it as well.
I got the closer, guys, and this is
been the fastest hour of my day. This has flown by.
This is great. But this is the closer for both of you guys, okay? I want to close out with this. I think we got to talk about this stuff sometimes because this is what people are interested in. They're interested in these cross opinions like this and the major level. And we don't usually talk about this a lot, so I wanted to. Okay, what's more influential? And we're not talking Hogan heel turn, Cena heel turn. I don't want to go there yet. Hulk Hogan took wrestling to new heights in the early 80s, 84. 12 years later, in 1996, I believe it was, he joined the NWO and resurrected wrestling again as a heel. So Hulk Hogan's the man, right? Who's more influential to the growth all around of professional wrestling? Is it Hogan for what he did in both of those eras twice? Or, damn it, is the GOAT one of your good buddies, AJ, Stone Cold Steve Austin? Because was there anybody hotter than Austin? And you got to remember, half the damn time he was injured in the Attitude Era because he broke his damn neck before he even really took off. Who's more influential in the history of professional wrestling? Is it Hogan for what he did in the 80s and then did again in 96? Or does Austin trump him as the greatest of all time?
It's Hogan, no hesitation. Like,
all right.
Like, I think Austin is better in many ways, but I don't think, we would not probably be having this conversation if it weren't for Hulk Hogan taking off. Like, and had it not been for Hogan joining the dark side in 96, that was such a catalyst in wrestling in innumerable different ways. Like, Hogan made wrestling in the 80s. I think he kind of reinvigorated wrestling in the mid-late 90s. And because of his heel turn, I think that, I was about to say indirectly, but maybe directly, kind of forced WWE to be like, we need to try some new stuff because they're one step ahead. Hogan just completely quadrupled interest in him and his character because he's now a bad guy, which was unthinkable at the time. So yeah, Hogan, I think it's safe to say that Hogan's the single most influential wrestler in the history of pro wrestling.
Okay, so let's do it. Everybody say, I'm going to go first. Mount Rushmore, top 4, the presidential are sitting up there. I'm going to go Hogan. I'm going to go Stone Cold. I'm going to go John Cena. And boy, this one's tough for me, but it's just such a different era. I'm drawn between The Rock and Roman Reigns, and we're talking about a pandemic. We're talking about attention spans. I'm throwing Roman at number 4. That's mine. Hogan, Austin, Cena, Roman Reigns. That's my top 4. Paul?
I think I'd have to go the same. I think, I don't know. I'm just a Hulkamaniac, right? Hogan's my number 1. And Austin was the next one that was like kind of the guy that I was infatuated with and loved watching. So I'd have to have him there as well. And after that, I just don't know. I mean, I think you got to have Cena, and probably for me, it's The Rock, right? Because I just think about all of the dynamics that were going on, Hogan Rock, Stone Cold Rock, all of those things. Like I just think about the biggest moments. I think about those are the guys that kind of did that for me.
Nice. Yeah, Hogan and Austin for obvious reasons. This one's tough because I think in my gut I have to give it to Cena. I think eventually, if he stays healthy, Roman will kind of eventually take that spot. I think Roman is doing phenomenal work, absolutely phenomenal work over the last couple of years. Ever since he got away from being the big dog and is now the tribal chief, just absolutely masterful. And if we're keeping it to just wrestlers, I think, and he's my all-time favorite, so I might be a little biased here. I think I have to put Shawn Michaels in there because it was when Shawn Michaels stuffed his pants and went out to the ring and was jumping up and down, crotch chopping in front of JR. And it was a conversation after Vince, he was out of town that week. Vince was. He saw that later and he was like, that's what we need. We need some attitude. That's how attitude was born. And also Shawn just being such a phenomenal worker before his first run and his second run. And again, you're talking about WrestleMania moments. Like Shawn has just an insane resume of WrestleMania moments. And I think his role in the Attitude Era and now grooming young talent in NXT, I think as far as influential goes, I think Shawn's on that Mount Rushmore for me.
But also, if it wasn't for Bret the Hitman Hart working with Stone Cold Steve Austin, if it wasn't for Bret the Hitman Hart working with Shawn Michaels, if it wasn't for Bret the Hitman Hart having that rivalry, he was the initiator of heel Vince McMahon. If it's not for Bret the Hitman Hart with all those things, do we get all those great characters involved? Exactly, man.
So this is a much deeper conversation then, because then you also have to talk about the curtain call, which sent Scott Hall and Kevin Nash down to WCW, put Triple H in the doghouse. Triple H was supposed to win King of the Ring that year. He was disciplined because of the curtain call. You know who won King of the Ring that year? Stone Cold Steve Austin, where he coined the phrase Austin 316, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
There's so much amazing stuff that I remember. My greatest moment in professional wrestling was my dad took me to the old Arco Arena in '93 with the bam, hit your feet on the seats type atmosphere. And I remember almost crying watching Razor Ramon take on Bret the Hitman Hart. And I remember Bret winning, and I looked at Bret as that was my hero, man. Even though Hogan got me into wrestling, it took Bret and Shawn for me to go, okay, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I think I can pursue professional wrestling. Even though Steamboat and Macho weren't the biggest, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels really opened the doors for the athleticism of wrestling that made guys like us go, well, where is professional wrestling today if Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels don't give us that little motivation to go, hey, I'm only 6 foot tall. I only weigh 215 pounds. Can I really do this on a high level? So, man, there's so many when you think about that. AJ, we are 1 minute away from this, and there's so much. I'm telling you, man. We could
well, obviously, I'm coming back for round 3 and probably 4, 5, and 6 and 60. So
have to, man.
Always a pleasure talking shop with you guys. I love that we can talk about this stuff and have different opinions and not shit tweet each other or like take it personally. You know what I mean? Like we get to celebrate our love for wrestling together, which is really what it's all about.
It's supposed to be fun, man. I remember we went to the Shark Tank. We got free tickets from Quad 106.5, and me, Skits, James Hayton, Scotty piled into an Aspire, and we sat in the front row the whole time yelling, looking good, Lillian, yelling at Robert Ramos. We didn't have championship belts on our shoulders. We weren't sitting in the front row talking about how bad the booking was, was. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, AJ Kirsch.
Thank you,
My
guys.
podcast, Partner, the Wrecking Ball, Paul's the Door. I'm Zach Primetime Reeb. We're going over.